Hello. So this video is going to attempt to explain the Adobe Internet Network and all the pieces and how they go together. So this picture we're looking at is a setup that I made this weekend using kind of backup equipment, and then I bolted it to my wall and I wired it all up, and this is fully functioning and represents pretty much everywhere in our network. And I'm just going to go over this, try to explain some of the pieces, etc., etc. But you know, I'm using just nano stations here that are 3 inches apart, but these could very easily be high gain antennas, sectors, whatever you want. But it's just radios with wires and things like that. All right, so we're going to start, and down here in the bottom left, let's go. The first thing is where the internet. There's a router behind here, and the address of that router is 10.1.0.1. and it's on a /24 subnet. So it comes up into the power brick and then up into this first radio, right? And then that radio, the wired interface is 10.1.0.88.24. So those are both on the same network. So also that radio on the WaveLAN interface is, so we've set everything up in here in router mode, not in bridge mode. So that means each one of these radios has 2 sides to it, the wired side and the wireless side. So the wireless side here is on a different network. 10.88.0.1 is its address, and it's on a 27 subnet, which is slightly smaller. So our connection comes up to this radio, and then it broadcasts the signal across to the other radio on the other side. And its wireless interface is 10.88.0.2. So the signal comes through to that, and then it goes down into the wire. So its wired interface is a different network, 10.88.2.1. I'm making up these numbers, you'll see the rhyme or reason. So now we've jumped forward and we go down the wire over to the switch, and the switch has its own address for kind of management purposes, 10.88.2.9. Then from this switch the connection goes over out to the next radio in line, and it's got its wired interface right all on this 10.88.2 network. And then it has a wireless interface where it's going to broadcast it downstream. This is another network, 10.88.3.1, right? And it broadcasts it downstream to the next guy. There's that one, and it has a wired interface. And then this, you know, you could say this is somebody's home setup, and the white radio here is outside, and then inside he's got a little Wi-Fi router. So again, on the wired interface, you know, we jump down from the 88.3, and now we're on the 88.4.1 is this guy, and then 4.30 is the interface on the Wi-Fi router. And then the Wi-Fi router itself, you know, is your typical 192.168, and it does Wi-Fi and wired connection. If somebody wanted to just plug in directly, they're going to plug into one of those external ports on that Wi-Fi router. So we're also broadcasting to somebody else's house, and that's this top radio, right? They're 3.3, and they don't have, or we don't provide them with a wireless router, so we just make the LAN side the 192.168 address. Alright, so lots of moving parts there, but that's kind of basically the gist of getting to 2 people's houses through a relay point. Oh, and then if that person wants to plug into the network, they're plugging into the power brick here. So this power brick is powering this top radio. That one side is PoE, the other side's LAN, so you just plug in there and then you get connected. Okay, so let's move on and look at this again from a different perspective. So this is all sitting in my garage, literally within like 3 feet of itself. But if we think about these things, this first radio is in one physical location. All of this stuff is in another physical location that could be, you know, a mile away. And then this is a different location, and that is a different location, right? Now let's think about this from a network standpoint. So here's our network, our 10.1.0 network. The network between these two radios here, that's another one. The network that's at a relay point is another one. The one between those radios is another network. And there's another one. There's another one. Right? So that is, the yellow is the physical network. There's another, anyway, you kind of get the point here. You know, kind of highlighting the difference between the networks actually cross physical places. Okay, that may be a little confusing, but you can kind of see. So some of these networks are crossing in between the physical radio. One side of the radio is on one network, and the other side of the radio is on the other. All right, let's move on. What was I going to do here? Oh yeah, okay. So one of the things. This switch in the middle, in the beginning when we started we used tough switches, but Ubiquiti added some stuff to their line, edge router, E6 or something is what they released, and that's what this is, edge router R6. This is pretty cool. It's a router, it's the same form factor basically as a tough switch, but it allows us to have a router at these relay points instead of kind of a dumb switch. And what that does is allows us to put all of our radios into bridge mode instead of router mode, and then the routers themselves can manage all the routing, which is way easier than manually programming the routing in each one of these radios. So the idea here is you still have your internet address there. This radio can have one address, that one can have one address. Then on the switch we're assigning, instead of it, well no, this isn't a switch now, it's a router, so each one of these points has its own address, right, and then these radios all just have one address. The Wi-Fi router is still the same way, but what it tries to attempt to do here once we do all this is, we had, I don't know, 6 or 7 specific networks here. This is trying to break this out into really 2 networks. And then, you know, this router here will talk to the upstream router and tell it everything it knows. It simplifies the network greatly. So this is what we're trying to move to. Part of the idea of this demo environment I made is setting it up like we currently have, and then practicing how we make the network changes and configurations in these radios without screwing anything up, because a lot of these radios are sitting up in a tree, and if we brick the radio, we're pooped. So this is a way to practice. So hopefully that helps explain our network a little bit for everyone.